Hi, so this video is going to be an example lesson. Of course, this video is not exactly the same as how this lesson would be in the classroom, but I hope it gives you some ideas about the types of activities you can do, some suggestions of kind of techniques and things like that, and also how to organize the steps of the lesson. So this lesson has a grammar focus and it also has a function. Okay, this lesson is aimed at teenagers and adults. It's not for young learners, and it's generally kind of intermediate to advanced depending on how you adapt this lesson. The grammar point is modals, and the language function, the functional target language, is giving suggestions. Some examples: you should and why don't you. During this lesson, have a look at the green text on the slides, and that just gives you kind of a hint about the purpose for each step and what the teacher is doing, the reasons behind each step. Okay, let's get started. So first, I want you to have a look at these two examples from a newspaper. Can you guess what they are? What kind of articles are these? Now, you might be able to see in one of them, it says agony aunt. What is an agony aunt? It's sometimes called a problem page. You may know, you may not know. When I did this lesson with some adults, nobody had heard of this. So an agony aunt is somebody who works for a magazine or a newspaper, and they give advice. So people write their problems to the newspaper or magazine, and in the agony aunt page, kind of an expert gives some advice about, life issues and health and things like that. So this is often called an agony aunt page, or sometimes called a problem page. Now, this is the context that we're going to use for this lesson. Okay, so the teacher has set up a context which is related to the language function. Okay, so let's have a look at some example lessons from a problem page. Dear Marge, all the other children are laughing at me at school and say my clothes are completely unfashionable. I feel really stupid. I ask my parents to buy me better clothes, but they say they don't have enough money. What can I do? Okay, that's a sad story. Okay, so what advice can we give? Why don't you? Or you should. Okay, so maybe if the students are low level, if you think that they're not really familiar with this, you can give some examples. But if they're higher level, if they're kind of strong intermediate, you can just go straight into making suggestions. Okay, so the kind of examples that I've heard, things like, why don't you save your pocket money? Why don't you get a part-time job? Why don't you shop at Uniqlo or Top 10 or some of the, the kind of cheap, good places for getting fashionable clothes? So, yeah, what I would suggest with this kind of activity is the teacher introduces it, gives some examples, and then put students into pairs, let them discuss together. Give them some time to think about it, to think of some examples, okay? Don't just, straight away expect students to reply, okay? Give them some thinking time, give them some preparation time, some practice in small groups, and then after a few minutes, then you can come together as a class and share your ideas. Okay, so there's the first problem letter. Here's the next problem letter. Dear Marge, I have been married for nearly a year and my husband doesn't seem interested in me anymore. I think he may be more interested in his work partner, a woman half his age. I am pregnant now and feel fat and ugly. Is there any hope for our marriage? Okay, and again, the task here is kind of brainstorming advice. Now, of course, if this lesson was for teenagers, I would change this example and do something different. This example's more for adults. So again, students in pairs, they brainstorm some advice, and then you bring everybody together as a class and share your ideas. Okay, so we've set the context and we've done some example activities together. Now this is kind of moving towards more individualized practice. Here is a worksheet about giving advice, which is also the same context about agony aunt. So here you have 4 letters, A, B, C, and D. These letters were sent to a problem page. So the task is that you have to add the correct title to each letter. The titles are The Dirty Rat, I'm Boring, Classroom Love, and I'm Getting Fat. Okay, so you have to match the title with the correct advice. Okay, so this is kind of reading practice. Give some time for students to do this. Now, actually, I haven't put this on this slide, but this worksheet also has a second part that I usually put on the back. And the second part of this worksheet is the replies from the agony aunt that were on the problem page, and students have to match the suggestions in the reply with the correct letter. Okay, so this is kind of scaffolding, give some more control practice and so on. Okay, and some more controlled practice here. This is kind of like a matching worksheet with should and shouldn't. What I want you to do is match the situations with the pieces of advice. So on the left here you see number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and so on. And on the right in the red you see A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay, here on the slide you can just see the top part of the worksheet, and students have to match the problem sentence with the advice sentence. Okay, so what I've done here is I've chosen a video actually that has some nice little dialogue, and in the video the teacher actually kind of goes over a bit of the grammar and gives a task at the end. So this is actually quite a nice video, and I like using YouTube videos occasionally in my teaching. Just give some exposure to other accents, other kind of expressions and so on. Okay, so watch this video, and after the video we'll review and we'll do the task that's at the end of the video as well.
Hey Maya, I need some advice.
Sure, what's up?
I think I just killed my neighbor's cat.
Oh no, what happened?
Yeah, no joke. I was driving my car and it just jumped out. It seemed like it wanted to commit suicide or something, but my neighbor, he loves that cat. I don't know what to do.
Well, you have to tell your neighbor.
Really? I have to? Do I have to? Can I just hide the body?
No, you can't do that. That's just wrong. You'd better write them an apology letter too.
Can I just move to a new apartment? Here are the modals of recommendation that were just used in the dialogue that you saw. When we want to recommend something to someone, then we can use some stronger modals like have to, must, and need to. The speaker is giving a very, very strong recommendation. Had better or should is a little bit of a weaker recommendation, but still quite strong at 80 or 90%. And if the speaker just wants to give a slight recommendation or just offer a choice, they can use can, could, or might. Keep in mind that after any of these modals, you're going to use a verb directly afterwards. So in the example that I had given you, you have to tell your neighbor. After have to, there's going to be a base verb afterwards. All right, let's take a look at the challenge of the week. One of your American friends is coming to visit you next week, and you are only going to be able to host them during the weekend, so they need some advice about what to do during the weekdays. Give them some advice using recommendation modals. You could say they have to buy a T-Money card in order to travel the city conveniently. They had better not drink too much soju during the week because I'm going to be taking them drinking on the weekend, and they can save money by staying at a youth hostel. All right, good luck, and I'm looking forward to hearing your responses.
Okay, so you saw in that video an example of a little conversation, kind of a example dialogue, and you saw the teacher introduce these other modals such as have to, must, need to, had better, and should, and can, could, and might. Notice again, I've explained in some other videos about using kind of a gradient going from 0% to 100%. Notice how these modals were presented with this kind of arrow of strength going from 50% to 100%. Okay, yeah, so in that video you saw these more examples of modals. This is to extend the language further. And you also saw a task, so let's do the task. So the example that was included in the video, they have to buy a T-money card in order to travel the city conveniently. They had better not drink too much soju during the week because I'm going to take them drinking on the weekend. They can save money by staying at a youth hostel. Okay, so that was the example. So here's the task. A foreign friend is coming to visit Korea. What advice can you give them? Okay, so have a look at the example to get some ideas. And here are the words that I want you to use in your example. Okay, have to, must, need to, had better and should, and can, could, and might. Try to use at least one from each line, okay, in your example. Okay, so that last slide was kind of free practice. Here are a little bit of extension. Actually, what I did when I was teaching these, I used these worksheets for the next class as a review. So again, here you've got a problem page and the students have to match the problem with the advice. Okay, so this is kind of a bit more extended practice. And then another practice activity was this is quite fun. It's a board game, and while students play the board game, they have to read the problem that they land on, and the other players have to give them some advice. So this is a little bit of free practice there. Okay, so that was a lesson about giving advice. Giving advice is a language function, and the grammar point was modals. And of course you could add some extra steps to this lesson, things like, you know, creating some new problems, some kind of fun problems, and giving advice to each other. Okay, but I hope that gave you some good ideas about teaching functional language and scaffolding grammar. Thank you very much.